Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully everybody is kind of getting some afternoon energy back. Everybody's going to be excited to hear from Jason and I. So my co-presenter today, Jason, if you would introduce yourself for us.
Yes, probably a few of you know me, having been at this event for quite some time. So I'm Jason Collier. I'm one of the co-founders at Scale. This week, I'm actually, Reedy's got me having an official title of Chief Evangelist. Jeff's our CEO, sitting in the back as well. And we've been doing this show for quite some time. We launched our hyperconverged stuff in 2012 at this show. And excited to be here with Lenovo talking about some of the new and exciting things we're doing and some of the, the world of IoT and AI that y'all have probably been doing a little bit of research on.
Excellent. And my name is Violand. I'm a product manager with Lenovo. I'm based out of Raleigh, North Carolina, and very excited about our partnership with Scale. Excited to be presenting today in front of you, talking about enabling Internet of Things and AI for mid-size enterprises. So just a quick show of hands, who out there is doing some sort of AI in their business today? Okay, so not many, right? How many are interested in what AI can do to help their business? Okay, a lot more hands, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk first about what is edge computing. Now, Jason, you and I had some discussions around this a few weeks back, and you have a very, very simple explanation for what edge computing is.
And that's because everywhere you go, this is still very much a part of the industry that people are trying to define. I've been to multiple of these shows, like kind of the Mobile Edge Congress, and things like that. And there's always a lot of vendors up there trying to define what edge computing is. And simply put, what edge computing is for us, you can take, there are power guys that are trying to define, if it's less than 10.21 gigawatts worth of power, then that's edge, right? And they've got all these things. But simply, for us, it is anytime you're running mission-critical applications outside of the four walls of the data center, right? So whether that be a remote office, branch office, we've been having, a lot of customer traction in retail. So inside grocery stores, clearly it's not the four walls of the data center. There's like kind of security concerns and all of those components, but you're still running mission critical applications. So running those mission critical apps outside the four walls of the data center, probably the most simplistic definition of edge that you will get from a lot of the folks out there, but I think it's the one that's the most applicable.
Yeah, and when you told me that over the phone, it was like, light bulb, right? I was like, finally, a definition that makes sense. So as we talk about edge computing, right, we want to understand how edge computing actually comes into play with Internet of Things devices and AI, right? Where does it fit in the ecosystem? And a good way to look at it is, very simply put, is you have IoT devices. Now these can be things like RFID tags at a grocery store, maybe doing inventory management, or handheld devices if you're in the medical field, or it could be sensors on a truck that are calculating how many miles it's being driven, right? Whatever that particular device is that's collecting the data, and then your edge computing device that sits near it is going to look at all the data that's coming from that and pick out what's important, pick out the anomalies in the data, right? All the kind of monotonous data, the normal stuff that you're really not going to be worried about and you're not really going to care about, we can peel all that away and take what we really want, the anomalies, and send that into your big data cluster wherever, where you can actually feed it to the machine and it can learn from it, right? Now, one of the things that a lot of folks say is, okay, now I have this IoT device, why does the compute need to be near it, right? Why does edge computing really exist? And there's a couple reasons for that. So you can see on the slide, one of the things, of course, is data explosion, right? So you have all of these devices that are generating terabytes and petabytes and exabytes of data that you're not necessarily going to want to push over a network, right? You want to pare that down and send only what you need to across a network to your main data center or wherever you're going to be pushing it to do your AI on it. Of course, the resiliency, the data needs to be acted on and retained at all times. Latency, right? Not only do you not want to be hogging all that bandwidth, right? It's not necessarily going to be quick to push it over the network to wherever it needs to go, right? And of course you have regulations, right? Data needs to stay local, can't be traversing country boundaries, things of that nature. So Jason, anything I missed there on edge computing and why it's important?
Yeah, and I think a big part of why edge computing is important is the amount of IoT devices. So it's a fun little experiment here with everybody in the room. So I'm guessing everyone has a phone in this room that probably has an IP address. So we'll count that as one. How many people have an Apple Watch or some type of other IP device on your wrist? So congratulations, you've got two. How many people have an iPad, a tablet? Yeah. So now we're up to people with 3 IP addresses on their person. And then you've got your laptops, whatever else you've got in there, other types of random devices. Last time I was at a conference like this, I think the record for personal devices with IP addresses, a guy had 5 on him at that particular time. Now, look at all the people in the room. How many IP addresses are we dealing with? And you think about this and you think about your place of work. You think about, let's say if you're a manufacturing organization, you've got sensors out there on your oil and gas, you got them on pipelines, all of this data. And now what would happen if you take and upload all of that data just straight to the cloud, right? This is where the cloud is not going to be the be-all, end-all, fix-all for everything out there because of this data locality and the data explosion created by these IoT devices. Prime example of this, we have one of our customers is a casino. They are running, basically, they're running our products on the back end that is doing AI analytics for basically the video camera setup that they're using. They have 3,000 4K cameras. This is on an Indian reservation in the middle of a desert. If they pump all of that data up to the cloud, you've just killed all of the bandwidth to the reservation, right? But they need to know the important data and have that pumped up to the cloud. So what they're doing is running these AI analytics on edge boxes as it collects this data and then feeds that up where they can use those analytics to make those decisions. Another example I love to use, everybody loves Tesla automobiles because they're cool, right? I mean, they've got some really neat technology in there. So the autopilot, everybody loves that autopilot. That thing is really some impressive technology. What it is, they've got all these, guess what, IoT sensors in the automobile as it's got a neural net that's locally basically driving the car. So that's the edge compute component. Now, that neural net gets retrained every time you make user input to it. So if it's sitting there driving along and somebody starts to come over in your lane and you correct it, what Tesla does, it takes the 30 seconds before and the 30 seconds after that user input, packages it up, does basically base analytics on it, uploads that to the regional edge data center that then uploads it to the cloud where, guess what, it gets trained into a new neural net, and when you park that car in your driveway at night, that new neural net is automatically uploaded to it, and you just made it smarter by doing that user input decision. And it's all this flow of IoT to edge to basically, you can call it like a fog or something like that, that regional data center, and then up to the broader cloud.
Yeah, so some great examples there across many industries, right? So as you're sitting out there, you can probably think in your own industry where you're going to have those IoT devices collecting data and where you can use that data in your business to help you make better decisions and be more efficient, right? So one of the examples, if you've been in any of the boardroom sessions with Scale yet, or if you're going to be in one later, one of the examples that they talk about is in a retail environment, right? Retail is something that, with online retailers continuing to grow and expand every day, brick and mortar retailers have to keep up with their technology in order to remain competitive, right? So you have things such as, in-store mobile commerce. Every time you walk up, I know you've got an Apple Watch and probably an iPhone to go with it. Every time you get near an Apple store, it goes, hey, welcome to the Apple store at wherever, right? Yep. Sometimes a little creepy. So, U-scans, cashier's checkout, right? But also things that, us as the consumers don't see, right? Inventory management on the back end, things of that nature, right? So, somewhere in all of those retail locations, right, you're going to have one system, a cluster of systems that are maintaining all of that infrastructure for that particular store. And it's not always going to be a nice, climate-controlled, secured room that only one person has access to, right? Sometimes it'll be, hanging above one of the freezers in the back of the grocery store. Sometimes it'll be in a restaurant under a manager's desk, right? There's many different environments where these things can live. So as we get further in the presentation, we'll talk about some of the solutions that Lenovo has come up with and partnering with Scale. They're going to help address that.
And I think one of the important things too about this, the edge component being able to deploy out there, is one, you have to be able to run your legacy applications. There are those brick and mortar apps like in that retail, they got to run point of sale, they got to run inventory control. But what they need is also a platform that can launch you into the next, basically kind of the era of digital transformation and business transformation when it comes right down to it. And I think having a flexible platform that can do both is going to be one of those key drivers, because nobody just, like, if you're running a grocery store, you don't pick up all your stuff, throw it away, and like, look, we're digitally transformed to run this latest, greatest stuff. You still have to run that legacy. And I actually met, talking about some of the cool things, on the flight out here, on one of my flights that I had boarded and was coming out here. That's another story. But I met this guy, and he was working in retail, and their company is using drones that are going through and doing inventory tracking by having a drone fly through the store shelves that then feeds into AI and is doing analytics to collect basically real-time inventory data and doing reordering based on that. And they all, in describing his stuff, I mean, it was just like this perfect fit for, an edge ecosystem for that to plug into.
Thanks for the heads up. So I know next time I'm at Walmart at 3 in the morning, I might get zoomed by a drone as it goes by or something. So let's talk a little bit now. We'll kind of switch gears. So now we've talked about edge computing and some of the applications for it, right? Talk about what Scale and Lenovo have partnered to bring together for a solution, right? And that's the HC3 hyperconverged platform, right? Now, Jason, there's a lot of different hyperconverged platforms out there, right? And so we've heard Jeff already talk about in some of the boardrooms kind of what makes HC3 different. So do you want to go through just a few highlights for everybody and what kind of sets it apart?
Yeah, some of the real highlights for what make HC3 different is it was kind of built for this edge mentality from the beginning. We looked at creating a very efficient software stack, and in doing that, we have the capability of not just going large, but going exceptionally small. So we've got a few of these platforms up here. One of the things we're working with Lenovo, this is the Lenovo Tiny platform. And this Tiny platform, we can actually run this as a 3-node cluster. And on this 3-node cluster, guess what? This has got really, there's some cool components in this, and we can actually even use Thunderbolt 3 for interconnecting these things to get 10 gig, basically a 10 gig internet without having to buy 10 gig switching. We can sustain 30 to 40,000 IOPS on a 3-node cluster of these, which is probably faster than most of your data center applications are running. The world of hardware is getting transformed dramatically, and Lenovo is a great partner for it. You've also got this beautiful box. I'll let you talk about it.
Yes, so this is our ThinkSystem SE350. So what I'm holding in my hand is actually a full-fledged enterprise-class server, okay? Xeon D-powered Intel processor inside. Let me slide the cover off here. Of course, this always goes more smoothly when you're not on camera. But you can see here, we've built it to be an enterprise-class system. You've got everything from your swappable fans to the ability to accept a NVIDIA Tesla GPU if you're doing workloads that need additional processing power or some type of graphic power, right? We can fit up to 8 M.2 drives in this, right? So a lot of impressive specs, but probably more impressive is where you can put this, right? Not only because of its form factor, but our engineers at Lenovo have designed this to go into environments up to 55 degrees Celsius and continue running, right? So it's also been designed to withstand a lot of shock and vibration. So if this is sitting in a manufacturing facility on top of a CNC machine and it's constantly being vibrated around, it can withstand that, right? If it's in a room that isn't temperature controlled and it's going to fluctuate, right? It's going to be able to withstand that. A couple other things, right, that you start to think about when you have something this form factor is you start worrying about security, right? If I just have one of these mounted on a wall, right, what's to prevent the cleaning staff from picking this up and walking out with it, right? So our engineers have also thought of that and built in security features such as this has an accelerometer in it, much like everybody's phone does, that can detect movement. And you can set it in the system BIOS that if somebody moves this, what it does is all the storage devices on this are encrypted, and encrypted with a set of keys, right? If it detects movement, it'll simply delete the encryption keys, therefore rendering the data inaccessible. The data's still there, you just can't get to it. So what we have is you would basically plug this in to a computer that has a working internet connection or a cellular device, and you basically authenticate it with Lenovo servers. It reapplies the keys and it unlocks it again, right? It has a tamper switch that if somebody removes the cover, it can do the exact same thing. So some pretty cool technology that we're working on. So, and along with, of course, the Scale software, right? It makes it very easy to start with one, maybe two or three of these. But as you were saying, as the number of devices and IoT devices grow, in the retail example, the amount of systems that they have to keep adding, it's also very easy to scale with these and add more as time goes on.
Yeah, hence the name of the company, right? So it's exceptionally easy to scale out. You can add more and more devices to it to basically fit whatever your growing needs are. And the best thing is, the hardware doesn't have to match, because as cool as that is, guess what they're going to have next year? Well, it's going to be even cooler, right? And you're going to be able to take that and plug that into that. You can take and mix and match these to basically fit the environment that you're trying to build. And then you take the Scale software, and the fact that we have an exceptionally tiny footprint to the point we can even run down on kind of like Intel compute cards and get exceptionally small. We can run on systems with as small a footprint as like basically 4 gig RAM. And that's small. And if you look at a lot of the other hyperconverged solutions out there, I mean, we can run an entire data center on what it takes a lot of those guys to boot. So being that efficient allows us to not only go big, scale it out large, but to scale it to basically meet the environments of those small remote office, branch office, or that IoT powering component.
Right, and I actually, while you were saying that, forgot one thing to mention, and I forgot because there's no antennas on this one, is this also doesn't require a wired connection, right? This also has the ability to connect to a Wi-Fi network. It has 4G LTE connectivity ability, and as 5G networks roll out, these systems will also have the ability to connect to 5G networks, right? And all of that is done at a layer below the operating system. So you don't have to worry about drivers or anything else. All the OS sees and the hypervisor sees is just one NIC card, right? So you can configure bonding and automatic failover. If the wired connection goes down, it'll automatically switch to 4G LTE. So you can keep collecting and keep getting that data from wherever this is located.
It's exceptionally cool technology.
So this is you'd mentioned a little bit more, you'd mentioned the term fog before, which is something that was new to me. I haven't even heard that term before we went through this presentation. I think that what the important thing here to take away is scale is not just about edge, right? You can build all the way from the edge all the way to the internal data center with scale computing.
Yep. And they're varying, clearly varying hardware components that actually make sense in a lot of those different aspects and different areas of that implementation. Yeah.
So while we have things like the Tiny and the SE350 with us, we also have options to do it on a normal 1U rack mount server. We have a tower option. We also have 2U rack mount servers with a little more processing power if you need that to build out something that would be the core in your data center that would actually be doing some of the AI work and everything else, right?
In our booth 401, you can come by and see some of those other options as well. We've got some of the 1U and tower options in there.
So just a quick, just kind of overview, just for those of you that are kind of curious how this partnership came to be. just share a little bit of a timeline. Of course, a lot of you already know Jason, you know Jeff, and you know the history of Scale. So we're really excited that we're doing this partnership with them. You can see there, we've been involved with them for a number of years now, and we definitely hope to keep that partnership growing long into the future.
Absolutely.
So, again, we talked about retail. I did want to bring up one of the case studies that Scale and Lenovo have been very successful with, and that's been with the a whole Delhaize group out of Europe, which, if you're not familiar, it's a grocery retail chain. If you're on the East Coast here, if you've heard of Food Lion, this is their parent company. But Jason, can you tell a little more about what Delhaize was looking to do and how you guys were able to help?
And I kind of mentioned earlier, one of the big things that they were looking to do was, one, replace out their aging infrastructure, which was running HP and VMware. They were doing kind of a single server in each environment, running VMware on top of it. And the thing that they didn't have that they really wanted was high availability at the location. If they lost that server, or like you say, the janitor or store manager comes along and unplugs it, and everything goes down, right? So that's clearly a bad situation. They wanted resiliency and high availability for those applications. However, like every retailer right now, and pardon my French here, they are scared shitless that Amazon is going to run them out of business, and they're not wrong, right? So one of the things that they're looking to do is ways in which to do transformation of their business to be, kind of more welcoming to the customers, give the customer a better shopping experience. So they really wanted to get into this whole digital transformation, and they wanted to have a platform that would allow them to do it. An example of a couple of the applications that they have developed with their DevOps team going into the stores are things like they created for the your phone a grocery list app, and you put your groceries on the grocery list. Now, over in Europe, parking is always kind of a pain. There's usually a parking garage located somewhere near those facilities. If you have items, here's a little trick for you if you're going to Europe. If you're near one of the Delhaize stores, if you have items on your grocery list, it will automatically validate and open the gate for you to go in and go parking, right? Because it comes up, uses the local tags in your phone, knows that you are there to shop at the grocery store. So you then go into the store. Each one of these stores is laid out a little bit different. That grocery list app reorganizes itself to give you the most efficient path through the store, or the most efficient path next to sales of product that they're trying to move, right? So there's a lot of different ways in which they can use this to maximize revenue, but it's ways you didn't necessarily think about if you're running just a traditional infrastructure. So they're really wanting to get in, and you've seen those, kind of the Amazon retail stores where you just kind of walk in, walk out, and they're using like AI to do that. This is all stuff that these retailers are looking to do, but an aging infrastructure built on a non-flexible environment did not give them the ability to do that.
That would definitely be cool to have that reorganize the grocery list so you're not bumbling around the grocery store trying to figure out where everything's at.
Yep.
And then, I would need an option to say, on a diet, so don't route me past the cookies. Yeah. Stay away from all that stuff.
You got all these little upsell opportunities
right?
in there, right?
All right, so that's a great customer success story that we have with Delhaize. So obviously this is just a little bit of an introduction into some of the cool stuff we're doing around edge computing and enabling IoT and AI. So there'll be a ton more information that we're happy to share with you at the booth. Again, as Jason mentioned, we'll be in booth 401 this evening. Also, of course, go on out to scalecomputing.com, go out to lenovo.com/us/en/data-center. That'll take you to our Lenovo Data Center homepage. We have all of the different Scale products that are available out there that you can look over. We've got some, collateral out there that's on different verticals and how you can apply this different technology out there. And of course, you can also send an email to info@scalecomputing.com. Or if you see any one of us passing in the hallway during the rest of the conference, feel free to stop by and just grab us and feel free to ask us a question. So.
Yeah.
I think that takes us to the end of our presentation. I want to thank my co-presenter, Jason, for being up here with me today.
Hey, Brad, thank you.
And hope that everybody has a good rest of the afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.